Okay, I lied. I'm sorry, but as I was rereading the end of the comments, I remember another reason why I wanted to talk about this, and it's one that really it feels like it's a jab at me. I know this person isn't actually taking a jab at me, but to speak from such ignorance and from an only monogamist only ideal, it's very hurtful what the end of this says, because it's not true. Now, I'm not saying it's not always true. Certainly there are people who are horrible at relationships and do screw up and act as if they almost have a right to do so, which they do not. But I'm going to read the post in its entirety, then I'm going to opine about it at the end, and then this is going to be the end of this for this particular, in terms of this particular topic for now. So, okay, I already read you about the marriages and how they don't see the point. If you're going to fool around, then why did you get married in the first place? See, another case in point on why I personally don't see marriage in my future, it's the kind of commitment on where you must ask yourself, can I tolerate this person for a very long period of time? Now, that's not a bad question to ask. I have no problem with that, and I think it's true. Is this spur of the moment, or is it something where you actually could picture yourself waking up to this person 5 years from now? I think that's a very pertinent question to ask yourself. If you want to and can, then yes, the marriage will work. Although that's not the only reason why a marriage would work. Again, this is very black and white and oversimplified. That's why I didn't like this post. If you have some doubts, then probably best not to dive headfirst into marriage. Yes and no. Are the doubts based on anything? Are you having cold feet just to have cold feet, or are you having cold feet because you actually have a problem with uh, being with this person 5 years from now? You know, if you have part of where my last relationship ended was I just had too many doubts. They were a good person, they just weren't good for me. Too many doubts, and I did break it off. I did ask myself if I had doubts, and if that was better than, if I could overcome them for this person. And in the case of my relationship before last, I could not. But at least I was honest about it. And while the person was a bit hurt, I mean, again, they were happy that I was at least honest about it. And they went on to actually find somebody who they could be good with, who they could marry, and are very happy. So was that a bad thing that I dipped my toe into the idea and decided, well, in this case, it wasn't going to work? No. But again, I'm off on a tangent here. I'm sorry. Marriage is not made for everybody. Yes, absolutely. I think that our society is way too overly obsessed with marriage, that marriage is the end goal, the end game. I don't agree with that. I know many people who outlast many marriages as a non-married couple than some of the more married couples that I've known. But I digress. I know personally if I was married, I would be an awesome wife because I'm the loyal, committed type. Oh, because there again, if I happen to be in an open marriage or an open relationship, I'm not loyal. By whose standards? Please enlighten the rest of the class. By whose standards would I not be considered loyal if I happen to be only with my wife and another person in a completely safe, consensual relationship where my wife knows about the other person knows about my wife, and they're okay with it? How am I not being loyal if I'm only being with those two people? Can you see again why I have a bit of an issue with this post here? It would all depend on who I get married to. If he is also the loyal type that won't screw around and just wants me, then the marriage will work. It takes two people to make a relationship of any kind flourish forever. Bullshit. Pardon my language about bullshit. In the case of polyamorists, I would ask you, Prove it. I know many polyamorous whose marriages or relationships, again, outlast a lot of the single pairings that I've known that I thought would last forever. The single pairings, not necessarily the polyamorous ones there. And that's such a slap in the face. Oh, unless you're two people committed in a relationship, it's never going to work. Screw you. If one or other or both doesn't want to put the effort into it, then they should end it cleanly and walk away. So if I'm polyamorous, if I'm in a committed open relationship, I'm not putting effort into it? How many polyamorists do you know? How many polygamists do you know? Now, in the case of polygamists, oftentimes, sometimes at least, let me quantify that. Sometimes you have the kind of community where the man is the head of the household. What he says goes. He gets to put in as much or as little commitment to each of his wives, excuse me, as he deems necessary. Polyamory generally isn't the same way, but it's a choice between the two people who are spending the time together. But in general, you're trying to spend as much time with both partners, working on that relationship with both partners, being committed to both partners at the same time. Oh, but we can't be loyal. We can't be as committed as monogamists. I'm sorry. Pardon my French, but fuck you. That's so narrow-minded. That's so ignorant to say that you're monogamous or you're just not trying hard enough. You're not really putting any effort into your relationships. You're just screwing around. You don't care about commitment. And yeah, there are some men like that. There are also some women like that. And no, I don't condone them. They are not polyamorous. They are not polygamous. They are not of my community. That said, we are not them and they are not us. And we need to stop painting things with one broad brush and saying that that is a definition, that that is the true nature of things, so that we can then straw man it and basically misrepresent it, straw man it, and argue against the straw man because you have no support otherwise. This is why I say interview, talk to people. Just like with BDSM, don't just assume. Don't just go off some biased articles or some anti-sex rad femmes who want to tell you that anything outside of monogamous relationships is bad, evil, wrong, and was the man's idea. Never mind if the woman comes to the guy and says, you know, I think I want to have a committed relationship with somebody else as well as with you. You know, I've heard of this thing called polyamory, and I was talking to somebody online who took me through the process or what polyamory means, and suddenly I made sense. You know, I actually was almost, you know, to the point of possibly cheating on you, Bill, but because of this option, because I know that I love you, but my heart has grown to encompass somebody who I know. You know, I want to explore this. And then the partner has the choice, has the right to yay or nay this sort of thing in terms of, oh, are we going to go from monogamy to polyamory? And if the other partner doesn't want to go, polyamorous are not to force. We would never force anybody into our lifestyle who's not wired for it, who's not made for it, who cannot be a part of that. Because as I said, I believe there are people who are absolutely wired and made for monogamy. And I believe there are people who may not be made for monogamy, but it's been beaten into their heads that that is the status quo, that is the only thing, or it's wrong, and are almost unwilling at times to contemplate self, to contemplate, hey, maybe this is for me. But nothing about this is like, oh, I'm going to chain you to me for the rest of my life and force you to experience my polyamory against your will. Just like with BDSM, that is not what this is about. Not even in the slightest. But of course, some of you don't care about that. You care that it's monogamy or it's wrong, period. Everything's just black and white, fits inside a box, and if it doesn't fit out in the box, then it's wrong. And I know that in many ways I'm preaching to deaf ears here. If that's how you believe, there's very few ways I can get you to realize that that's such an backwards way of looking at things, pardon my language. But it is. I used to be like you. I didn't research things. I didn't look at things. I was at the whim of whatever knowledgeable individual happened to be within earshot. And that was such a terrible way to waste my life and my intellect. And I think it is for you. I have this problem of having faith in most of you out there, that you can become people who think for themselves, who do practical research, and who can become bigger, bolder, and better people for a bigger, bolder, more productive society that does things instead of outlawing things that have nothing to do with anything else. Just saying.